What's up, y'all? I'm Deidra, and this is ShadeTree Reads. I'm here with this video to do my February wrap-up. I read 7 books in February. We're just gonna go in order of the order that I read it. The first book I read was The Radium Girls by Kate Moore. It was a nonfiction book set in early 20th century America. It was about these girls who were hired to paint numbers on like wristwatches and like wall clocks and things of that nature with radium. In the book, like I said, this is one I got from a library. I also listened to the audio book on through Scribd, I believe it was. But they tell you exactly what type of brush that they use. They give you the brand and the number. But I'm just going to assume it was something like this. Just a little brush. This right here is just an acrylic brush. So they were instructed to lip, dip, and paint. So paint. Paint. So imagine that, because we all know what radium is at this point in history, but at that point, they were using it for everything. It was advertised to be this fountain of youth type of elixir or thing from the earth that was just this good thing, and it glowed in the dark. Like these girls going to these factories, painting these clocks and doing these things, they became socialites because they were paid so much for that time. This is like, I want to say it started around 1918. I'll try to annotate it if I'm wrong, if I can figure it out. But yeah, so not much, the FDA is not what it is today, or the CDC or things like that. Like this case with these girls who were instructed to put this radium in their mouth and that it wouldn't, or, you know, exposed and not given any kind of real precautions or safety gear, or like they were covered in this radium, in this stuff, and it was causing them so many health problems. Like if you're averted to body horror, or like not even horror, this actually happened. So if you have any kind of issues with seeing or reading descriptions of gory things that happen to the human body as a result of being exposed to this radium, then maybe skip this one. But like I said, it was just a really good book. I enjoyed it. I was enthralled the whole time. I was telling my friend actually recommended it to me, and I was actually spoiling it to her when I was raving about it or just like carrying on about it. So yeah, so I gave it 4 stars, and that was the first book I read in February, was The Radium Girls by Kate Moore. At some point in February, I decided to sort of kind of participate in Blackathon and Blackloveathon. What I ended up doing for Blackathon was I just decided to read Black authors. So the first one that I picked up was A Princess in Theory, or the second book in February that I picked up, but the first book by a Black author that I read was A Princess in Theory by Alyssa Cole. It is a romance. It was half set in, I forget the name of the country. I'm not even sure if it's a real country, but it's set in this country that Dabizo and Lakotsi is from. Lakotsi was my favorite. Lakotsi, I think, is the correct pronunciation. But she was my favorite, and she was a sapphic character. Dabizo was this African prince trying to find his betrothed, and that person is Letty, and Letty is working trying to get an internship, a residency or an internship as a medical researcher of sorts. Her specialty was epidemiology and the control and containment of epidemics and diseases, which is kind of appropriate for right now. So it was entertaining. I hadn't read a romance in a long time. It was fine. I'm not even, I don't even want to say fine. It was just, I did not like was the fact that Letty kind of like, sort of like, up until a point, she was making sense to me. Like, she was like, who is this person emailing me? And then when she finally did give in to this guy, because the way he came to be in her everyday life was kind of like, but he's fine. He's an African prince. He carries himself as such. So I mean, who wouldn't eventually let their guard down? But the quickness with which she did it, just kind of like, really, girl, I didn't like it. It wasn't believable to me. But I gave it 3.5 stars. I plan on reading Once Ghosted, Twice Shy, which features Lakotsi and the person that we're sort of introduced to with her in A Princess in Theory. So I'm excited to read that one. It was up for some award and I retweeted it the other day. So the third book that I read in February was not by a Black author, but it was good nonetheless. It was Holes by Louis Saker. This is the story about Stanley Gaunitz, who is under the curse of his great-great-grandfather, his no good, dirty, rotten, pig-stealing great-great-grandfather. Through a series of unfortunate events, he ends up going to Camp Green Lake, and there he ends up meeting a bunch of boys who are also sentenced to this place. And we have some adult characters who are, I mean, a lot of these middle grade books and even movies, the adults are sort of either missing or poorly behaved, but I wouldn't say that so much in this one. So the three adults we have are the warden and Mr. Sir and Mom, aka Mr. Pandisky. This is just a really fun book. I would totally recommend that if you're looking for a light read, a quick read. I mean, it's not that small or short. It's kind of short. It's 233 pages. The font's kind of small. It was fun. I don't want to say much more than that brief synopsis so as to not spoil it for you, because I didn't know much about it going in, just because it came out, it was written in 1998 and I was already in high school by then, so I sort of missed that train. But it was fun. I'm glad I read it as an adult. I think I would have loved that if I had known about it. Even in high school, that would have been fun. The fourth book I read in February was for my very superficial participation in Blackloveathon. I read the group book, which was Rebel by Beverly Jenkins. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I think if you watch my BookTube newbie video, you'll know that I don't enjoy anything in the slave era, Civil War era, anything like that. I'm tired. I don't want that in my life. I was surprised that I liked this once I found out when it was set. It was post-war, so that helped. It was about this lady named Val who just really wants to pursue her dream of teaching, but she can't really do it in New York because her dad's kind of controlling. So she goes to New Orleans just to get out from under his thumbs. She travels by train by herself, and she gets there and she's going to her new schoolhouse, and she gets attacked by these I guess you could call them Klansmen, but they're really just you know what I'm trying to say. So they attack her and she's trying to get away. She disarms one of them and puts down the other one, sort of, and she's making her way away, and she bumps into this man, like literally bumps into this man, and that is Drake, and he basically saves her. She doesn't fall in love right away, but the story of how they eventually come back together and how their lives sort of go from that initial meeting, I loved it. It was great. I don't know if I already said, but I gave it 4 stars. Yeah, I would definitely read something else by Beverly Jenkins, even though I know, or I believe, she primarily focuses on historical romance. We'll see. I'm gonna pick something else up. The 5th book I read in February was appropriately the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. Y'all, I have 2 tabs in here, but that's just the appendix and like a glossary, just so, because I was getting confused with some of the terms, even though in the context they made sense. For the most part, it was written in 2nd person, which is not something that I typically come across in the books that I read. So it took some adjusting. I used my Audible credit for February to get the audiobook of this so that I could get in a rhythm and understand how to pronounce a lot of the names, and just to get a real feeling of what Jemisin wanted me to know or feel. Because I think if I had read this only physically, I probably would have gotten so confused that I would have gone into a reading slump, and I might not have finished this, just because it's so different and the voices are so different. The plot, I can't even tell you who the characters are because I feel like that's a spoiler. So basically, in this world, which I think is Earth as we know it, sort of, in this world, it ends occasionally or sometimes in things that are called seasons, and it's like errors. They basically, earth shakes, there's earthquakes, and the plates shift, and so things get rearranged, and the land doesn't look like it did last season. And there are people called ragas who can sort of quell the earth shakes and call up an earth shake and use the power of the earth to do things. That's really all I can really say about this without going too deep and spoiling some stuff. I feel like you should go into this blind and just let that go with it. Let the confusion just kind of, float around, and eventually things will come together, I promise. I also got, as you can see, the 2nd book in the series, The Obelisk Gate. I just didn't want too much time to pass before I started on the 2nd one. And then there's one more book called The Stone Sky in the series. I'll pick it up, and hopefully it'll be, easy to get into, since I'm already used to the style and I already know a lot of the characters. And I think I know what's happening now. So we'll see. I'll let you guys know hopefully in March. The 6th book that I read out of 7 in February was A Dead Gin in Cairo by P. Jelly Clark. This is my first one of his works that I've ever read. I must say that I will pick up everything that I can get my hands of his. I'm not even a short story person. Trust me, it's like I really always want more from a short story, and it's almost not even fair for me to have picked this up, but something about it just called to me. It was like, Deidra, read this. You need it in your life. I think it was free on my Kindle Unlimited. And so I was like, why not? And I picked it up. It was only like 33 pages. Picked it up. Lovely. I'm not sure if the main character, Fatma, is sapphic, but she kind of gave me dapper lesbian vibes. I was here for it. I wanted it. I wanted more of her. I could have taken a whole book about this situation. Like, we could have really I could have taken 100 pages of this story, even though it wrapped up really nicely and I understood everything in the end, and I just loved it. It's too short to give you a synopsis. Just know that Fatma is that bitch. This one was actually a book that I picked up for a Facebook group that I'm in. It was a group book. They ended up having a live discussion with the two authors in the group at the end of February. And that book was All American Boys by Jason Reynolds and Brendan Kelly. This is a book about two characters, one black teenager named Rashad and one white teenager named Quinn. Content warning for police brutality and racism and family drama, I guess you can say. The book is about what happens to Rashad, and I don't have the book with me. It's another one that I got from the library, and I read along with the audiobook from Scribd. I don't think this is a spoiler, but Rashad goes to parties every Friday night, or when they have a basketball game or something at home. And he's going to the convenience store before, like, just to get some snacks and stuff before he goes to the party. And he's in the convenience store, and he goes to tie his shoe, I believe. And there's this other lady there's a white lady in the aisle with him, and she doesn't see that he bent down to tie his shoe, and she trips over him. And while that's going on, there is a police officer talking to the owner or the manager on duty at the register, and those two people see the end of the lady getting up and Rashad reaching into his bag where there's a bag of chips. And this police officer comes in, like, jacks up Rashad, really roughs him up to the point that Rashad ends up in the hospital. And the rest of the book is just sort of a deep dive into how that impacts a whole high school and a whole community, and family ties and friend ties and teammates and crushes and lovers and all of that. It was everything. The only reason why I didn't give it 5 stars is because I think I was a little let down with the ending, and that could have been because this book wasn't written for adults. It was written for teenagers. I was just a little let down by the ending, but that's the only reason why I didn't give it 5 stars. People that could catch hands in this book: the police officer, the pastor, Rashad's pastor, and the police officer's little brother. And at one point, Rashad's father could have got these hands. He ended up surprising me in the end, in both a good and a bad way, I'll say. Please read this book. I think it's so important. I'm not one to like to read things like that because I read to escape. So I was really surprised that I so readily picked it up and was so invested in it and enjoyed it so much. Again, the audiobook on Scribd, I think the best way to get Scribd not to try to flim-flam you is to read older books, because this book came out in like 2015. That was All American Boys by Jason Reynolds and Brendan Kelly. And that's all the books I read for February. I read 7 of them, which is a lot for me, but I think I just had the mojo of really wanting to try to start a booktube channel in the back of my mind during February. It was something that I set for a goal for myself back in January. The books I'm reading now, though, I'd like to talk about because I am excited that I finally get to check both of these out, 2 of them off the list. So Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. Listen, I did not like Anne Rice when I was a kid. I tried a couple of her books, and I don't remember which ones at this point, but I tried a couple of her books and was just like, she is so wordy. But now, as an adult, I mean, I don't really even know where I got that from. She's a little long-winded, but not nearly as bad as what I had in my mind. Again, same friend that I've been talking about this whole time. We had made, in our little book chat, we had made a, I don't know if it was an agreement or a pact or whatever, but we were going to recommend to each other formative books, to read to each other. I chose The Coldest Winter Ever by Sister Soldier. I got all the the first 3 books in the Vampire Chronicles. She wants me to get to the Queen of the Dam so bad. I didn't even watch that movie because I think it came out after Aaliyah had died, and I just couldn't do it. Or I don't remember. It was. It's good. I suggest you read it if you haven't read it yet. The other book I'm reading right now is Temper by Nikki Drayden. This is good. It has taken a little bit. I'm just now getting to some action. And this is page 80. And the font, again, is kind of tiny. I mean, it's fine. I don't know where this is going to go. I have no idea what's gonna happen here. I can't even really tell you. So far we're following 2 brothers, I think, and I'm not sure if we're also gonna be following their mates through the whole thing or what. But Temper by Nikki Drayden, so far so good. It's starting to pick up on page 80. The audiobook on Scribd, the narrator is excellent, and I bought it probably the middle of the year last year, and it's just been sitting on my shelf for that long, and I finally picked it up. I meant to pick it up for Blackathon, but I just didn't get around to it for whatever reason. Oh, it's because I had to pick up All American Boys so I could read it by the time that live discussion with the authors was. But this is good. I want more people to be talking about it so we can figure out what the hell's going on and where is this going to go. Is this going to be a series? I don't know. But it's on the African continent. I'm trying to get more and more books that are not necessarily American centered into my reading. Trying to get, I don't know what the word is, just I want to make sure that I'm not always reading books from American authors and set in America. Like, if I'm going to escape, why would I just stay in my backyard to read? So we're trying to make sure that I'm always reading, at least even if the author now lives in America, at least they weren't necessarily born here, so they're going to have a different perspective to life. With that said, I'm going to read The Incineraries by R.O. Kwon this month. I forget when. Anyways, I don't know what this is about. I forgot why I wanted to read it. I had it on my TBR for a good minute. I think I probably saw somebody on BookTube recommend this, and it sounded like something I wanted to read because I'm trying to get more Asian authors for sure. Get more Asian authors in my reading. So that's The Incendiaries. And we've already, Asian authors in my reading outside of mangas and comic books. And then when I said that, I'm going to also read My Brother's Husband by Jingoro Tagami. I've heard a lot about this on BookTube for sure. And I got both volumes because they were available at the library. And lots of times when I don't pick up both volumes, I fly through the first one. I end up loving the first one and trying to rush back to the library to get the second one, and it's gone. So when I saw both of them, I went ahead and picked them up. And I thought it was so cute. By this time, you should know, everybody should know what this one's about. I'll leave a link to the synopsis from Goodreads in the description below. So that's all the books I read in February, y'all. I had a really good reading month, probably one of the best reading months that I've had in a long time. But here lately, I've really narrowed down what I like and what I don't like, and I just try not to read things that I am not 100% sure, but like pretty certain that I'm going to like, or at least not hate. So I don't DNF too many books anymore. So I might DNF this for a little while and then jump on these two and then come back to it just because it didn't grab me right at first, but we'll see. Thank you for watching. I hope that you have, nope. Thank you for watching my February 2020 wrap up. I read 7 books, probably an average of 3.75 stars. It was a great reading month. I hope yours was as good as mine, and we'll see you in my next video. Bye.